What's going on, everybody? Another episode of The Porch coming your way right now is always DJ Caveman and Tommy DiNucci. This week, we're talking about saving Christmas as we get up in the Christmas spirit right here, guys. Saving Christmas is about a young boy named Danny who tries to prove the existence of Santa by using his intelligence and gadgets. He and his trusted group go on an intense journey to find the truth of Santa. And with that, we bring in Tom DiNucci, writer, director, actor, wrestling fan.
Yes. What's up, guys? With every holiday, it's nice to get little presents, to get a little gift.
Right.
So our gift to everybody today is we're going to have Tommy Dreamer do a little call with us.
Very nice.
And we're going to have Mike Bennett on the show later. And we're just going to drop in. We're going to talk about saving Christmas. We're going to talk about their time on the movie. We're going to ask them a couple of holiday fun questions. And we're going to keep it loose today. We've got a lot to talk about, so we should just dive right into this thing.
Let's do it.
So Saving Christmas, we shot this one in April of 2017. Really funny kind of story how it all came about because, you know, I never planned on making a Christmas movie. That was never on my agenda, on my list. Love Christmas movies, grew up on Home Alone and all those kind of movies, but yeah, just never really...
You never wanted to do like, I'm going to do a Christmas movie?
Yeah, just didn't think of it. So I got this call kind of out of the blue from David Gear, who we've talked about on the show a lot. He's a producer out of Connecticut. He's worked with me a bunch here in Rhode Island. We've done a bunch of work together. Go back into the archives. You'll learn all about David Gear. He calls me up, and he's got this guy, Phil Goldfine, on the line, who's a producer in L.A., and he actually was one of the main producers on the Pig movie, which we talked about in our last episode. Was that 6?
Episode 6, yes.
So I got Phil Goldfine and David Gear on the phone, and they kind of called me out of the blue, and they're both kind of like, hey, Tommy, we got an opportunity to make a Christmas movie. We had one in play. The writer-director bailed. We don't have a script anymore, but we have a need to fill. Because how it works, guys, when you own a company like, for example, this company, HMB, they just pump movies out, and they have a certain quota that they're trying to put out. They need to make X amount of movies that are, Christmas movies, action movies, family comedies. They try to stay in all these different spaces. So to be competitive, it really serves them right to have a nice, really solid Christmas title ready to go. So they were in need of one, and they called me up, and they asked me if I had one. And I was like, well, I don't, but give me an hour. Let me get right back to you. I'll pitch you an idea. I'm going to call my writing partner and cook some ideas up. I've already got a couple things in my mind. Call you back in an hour. Okay. So, I call him back in an hour. And in that hour, I'm calling my buddy Kevin DeCristofano, who Kevin's worked with me a bunch of times. We actually went to school together. My first class of film school ever, he's sitting right next to me. So that's how far back we go. So I call him up, and I'm like, now, Kevin's a very creative guy, and he deals with a lot of, he loves cartoons, he loves animation, loves comic books. So he's got this youthful kind of sense to him anyway, so I knew he would be kind of the right guy to go to first. So I'm like, Kevin, I gotta make a Christmas movie. I got an hour to come up with a pitch. And we just went right into it. And he was like, oh, this is awesome. So we kind of just started throwing ideas back and forth. Stranger Things was hot as hell at the time, still is, right? But this is when it was just getting going. So I was like, well, what about this group of kids who are kind of outsiders, but they're into conspiracies. They like trying to hunt down Bigfoot. They want to try to find Loch Ness Monster. Well, now their new mission is, let's find Santa Claus, the true identity. And they're those kids, everybody, maybe you were one of these kids. I kind of was. You believe in Santa a little bit too late. It's like you're probably 12.
I caught my parents wrapping gifts at 9. 8, 9.
Yeah, they lost you pretty early, didn't they, Daryl?
Definitely.
How do you feel about that? Was that traumatizing?
No, not at all. I was like, oh, shit, there's no Santa Claus. I don't remember being traumatized by it, though.
As long as you get the gifts.
I was like, oh.
There's like, whoa. I still get the gifts, right?
You guys bought the gifts.
No problem.
Excellent.
I thought that was kind of creepy. Guy busting in the house at night.
There's too many questions. How does he get in? I lived in an apartment. I didn't have a
it sounds
chimney.
Like bullshit to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking to Kevin. Conspiracy theory kids, kind of like Stranger Things. Well, now they're after the true identity of Santa. They all believe, but all the other kids at school think they're insane for believing. So what do? Well, they make it their mission to prove all the other kids in school wrong they're going to go find Santa Claus. Actually, Larry was in the movie. One of the co-stars of the film, Larry, my cat, just strolled on. He just strolled around at the set here. Larry made his cinematic debut. We'll talk about that later because we got a lot to catch up on today. So I pitched this idea, and I called him up. And at the time, the movie was called The Santa Files, and because it was like a play on the X-Files. And I basically called him up, told him the pitch, and Phil Goldfine was like, "Great, let's do it. I need a script in like a week." And I'm like, wow,
that's kind of tight.
All right, okay. So Kevin and I kind of just, went to work. And, Kevin worked a day job at the time, and I was kind of just, we were going back and forth. Like, he worked a day shift, I'd work the night shift. We'd be paging, switching pages back and forth all day long. And then at one point, I kind of just took it, and, Kevin had got it to a certain point, like 70-something pages, 75 pages, and I just took it and, like, cranked out the last 15, 20, made it all a nice package with a bow around it, gave it to Phil. They read it. And they had some things to say about it. There were a couple of things that needed to be changed, a couple interesting points about the script. So I wanted to make a Christmas movie that was a little different. I didn't want to make this cookie cutter kind of a deal. I'd seen a ton of those on Hallmark. Everybody either got a sister or a mom or whoever who just like binges on those things, those Hallmark Christmas movies.
All the Hallmark movies.
And they're all the same, man. They all get the same premise and the same pitch, or someone's marrying a princess, but you don't know about it until later, or some bullshit. Right. I wanted to make something different. I wanted to make something that would get me excited if I was a kid. I love wrestling. Like, if you look around my office, we're surrounded by action figures. It's something that, since I was, as long as I can remember, pro wrestling has been a part of my entertainment life. It's been my little escape, been my little place to kind of like get away and forget about your worries. So I wanted to incorporate that into wrestling, and not to get too deep with a kid's Christmas movie, but I remember that wrestling got me through some kind of dark times when I was a kid. Like sometimes when I wasn't too happy or whatever, I'd watch wrestling, make me feel a little bit better.
It's fun. It's just fun.
It's your fun little escape. So I wanted to put these kids through something, and I wanted them to have a little pain, and I wanted this movie to be a little different, have a little bit of an extra dimension. So we did some things. There's no dad in this story. The dad has passed away, and this is actually these two little kids. It's their first Christmas without dad. So it's kind of a, the stakes are raised emotionally, and it's kind of a heavy feel going into things. And there were a couple of scenes that were kind of dark, and right away, the guys, the powers that be, were like, "Whoa, this is a little depressing, Tom. You got to get rid of that stuff." They were like, "Okay," I kind of fought for it. I was like, "Well, I think it's really important for the dynamic, and you don't have to hire a dad actor. You save a little money.
Save a little money."
So basically, like, I fought for that, and it stuck. And then the other thing that I had to really fight for, which is unique, we talk about wrestling, I wanted these kids to kind of get through this tough time that they're going through by being excited about this pro wrestling event that's coming to town. It's called the Gingerbread Brawl. It's the coolest event in pro wrestling. It happens once a year on Christmas Eve. They want to go to this show more than anything in the world, but there's not a lot of tickets. It's limited. It's tough. So again, it gives our characters like something else to be up against. And then maybe there's some payoff at the end. So basically, the guys thought wrestling, and I think some of these guys that were working for the company had a little bit of a dated idea of what pro wrestling is. You think pro wrestling, a lot of times you think, you think late 90s. You think chair shots to the head. You think blood, barbed wire, cage matches, women with their boobs hanging out,
right.
And tasteless entertainment. Jerry Springer in a ring. That's what a lot of people still think wrestling is. Man, wrestling's changed so much in the last few years, particularly. It's a major thing. It's on national TV, on a couple of different networks. It's as mainstream as it's ever been. And I knew that. And I knew this was like okay, well, you want to make a movie for kids? Well, kids love wrestling. And I knew that, okay, it wasn't going to be so much about wrestling that the kid that doesn't like wrestling, we're not going to lose that person. We're going to lose that kid. They're just going to be introduced to something new, because it's kind of just in the backdrop. So what I was able to do by doing that was I was able to bring in some pro wrestlers to actually be in the movie. And I knew that would be very important, because at the end of the movie, this whole film culminates around this Christmas miracle that takes place at the Gingerbread Brawl. So I knew that, like, you always hear this a lot, for filmmakers out there. You hear about, Brett Ratner was famous for this. The big third act set piece. You know, it's a major part of storytelling. You know, if you got that, then you know that, like, your movie, if anything, is going to end in, like, a cool place, cool location with a bang. So our big third act set piece was the Gingerbread Brawl. My producing partner, David, who also moonlights as a pro wrestling manager named DG Haven. I hope I didn't ruin your, your secret identity with that. I don't know how that works with your gimmick. But DG Haven had done some work with the XWA, which is a local promotion based out of Warwick, Rhode Island. Mike Antonucci runs it. Great guy. We've done some work with them before. We've talked about it on the show a million times. I love working with pro wrestlers. It's kind of just like a natural fit for me. So DG was like, "Hey man, I can get the XWA center, and they got a ring, they got everything you need, and then we just got to decorate it for Christmas." And that was kind of part of my pitch to the guys. I was like, "Look, you gotta let me do the wrestling," because they really were hell bent on pulling the wrestling. They were like, "Okay, we'll let you have the deceased father, but you're not having the wrestling too." I was like, "No, we gotta have the wrestling. Like, you gotta understand, like, this is like a real, like, great product for kids, you know, like." And I'll show you. It's going to be very warm and fuzzy. So I did some things to make it warm and fuzzy. We had talked about wrestlers. And we're going to talk about Tommy Dreamer. We're going to talk about Mike Bennett. I had a wrestler by the name of Gangrel, who during the Attitude Era of wrestling was very popular. He was a vampire, basically. That was his gimmick. And he still is. You know, he's still working today. Has a school in Florida. Trains wrestlers.
Nice.
Awesome guy. And I had got in touch with him through the grapevine, through other wrestlers. And I thought he'd be great as our big villain, you know, that the guy that you got to beat at the end of the movie, basically. But a vampire that spits blood out of his mouth was probably a little too edgy for the Christmas movie.
For a Christmas movie, yeah, right?
So we changed his gimmick, and we made him a Viking. And he was like, you know, Magnus, the Viking kind of a deal. So we also made it clear to him that, you know, hey, this wrestling event's going to be family-themed. It's going to be red and green everything, and candy canes everywhere, and gingerbread houses, and it's going to look very friendly, you know, in its presentation. So they went with it. They went with the wrestling, and we were able to go for it. So basically, we went for it, and actually, I am 1 minute away. We got to call Tommy Dreamer.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it's already 12:14. So guys, we're going to jump right into it. Tommy Dreamer is going to drop by on the porch, just like the mailman on Mr. Rogers, only digitally and through the airwaves. We're coming at him. We're calling him right now.
We're going to call him right now. Here we go.
All right, Tommy, so we're so happy to have you on the show. I know you're driving. I know you're on the road, so thanks for taking the time. And we'll hit you with our first question. What was your time like on Saving Christmas?
Well, with the backstory that you proposed, it's interesting because I always say wrestlers are always the redheaded stepchildren of the entertainment industry. If you look at professional wrestling, you know, Monday Night Raw is the longest running show on television, longer than The Simpsons, and yet they can't get an AFTRA or SAG because they say we're athletes, and you should unionize, and then if you try to get a union together, then everyone, well, one, will probably lose their jobs if you try to unionize within WWE, but then two, if you formed a union, they say, well, they have one, it's called SAG or AFTRA, because you guys are, you know, actors, but guess what, you're really not, you're athletes, so it's always that double-edged sword that always screws over the professional wrestler, but I always say, you know, if you're doing, I worked in WWE 11 years, if you're doing television, you're doing live television, you can't mess up, you know, and plus you're cutting promos, that is acting, and that's why I feel professional wrestlers make some of the greatest actors, and thank God someone named Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is proving Hollywood that why he's so successful, because, you know, he is, and you've always used that formula with wrestlers, and, you know, being a wrestling fan, and then just seeing how quickly we adapt to whatever surroundings that we have. So with that, I love being on all your films. It also kind of reminds me of ECW, though everything is, you know, I've been on a lot of your stuff. You've also gotten the most out of the least, where I'm talking either if it was a budget issue, or you call in like your friends to do this, and then there's these amazing props or amazing sets, and you call in favors, and like then
No, thanks, man.
You think it's going to be like something cheesy looking, and every one of your films has been off the charts.
I really appreciate that, Tommy. Thank you, man.
So you're a Paul Heyman Svengali with that.
Well, I was just telling the guys what a big wrestling fan I am, and wrestling fans out there will know, to be compared to Paul Heyman, that is a Christmas gift in itself, so I appreciate that, Tommy. It means a lot. And I was just telling the guys how great it is to have wrestlers, because they really are, to use a football reference, it's like the Bill Belichick hybrid type athlete. They can play a little bit of linebacker, they play a little defensive end, put them in the secondary if you need to, run back a kick, they do it all.
Right.
Yeah. To answer your question too, straight up about being on the set, was Ed Asner,
Yes.
iconic actor.
Talk about Ed.
And everyone is treating him like they should, with utmost respect. He was in a wheelchair for a lot of the filming. He was going through some medical issues during that. And everyone is like, also at times just, they don't want to talk to him because they're fearful. And then, we asked and we take some pictures. He was more than accommodating. But then he's like, so you're the wrestler? And he's like, Bobby Orton? And I'm thinking, like, how does he know Randy Orton and he's messing up his name?
Right.
And then he goes, I went to school with him. And he goes, yeah, I was great friends with Cowboy Bob Orton, Sr.
Right, and not even the one from the 80s, right, Tommy?
Correct.
His father.
He's friends with the father. He went to school with him. And then he goes, I heard his kid did pretty good, and he's now talking about Cowboy Bob Orton. But he's talking about, like, someone that I grew up watching saying his kid, and I'm like, yeah, his grandkid is doing pretty well, too. And then it's just like, and I always say, everyone has something to do with professional wrestling. And then he just totally it was like I was sitting at a bar with my grandfather or at a dinner table, and he's like, I did a movie called The Wrestler. You ever hear of it? And I totally remembered. I'd forgotten he was in it.
Wow.
And then he goes, Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch were crazy.
That's right. Now, Vern Gagne produced that one, right?
Correct. And he played Vern Gagne.
That's nuts.
And
that's amazing.
It was almost like an insider look at the business, but this was in the 70s when the business was
that movie
so
was
protected.
Very ahead of its time. Very ahead of its time.
But
that's so
the
cool.
greatest part is here I am having a conversation with Ed Asner and about professional wrestling, and then he's telling me how crazy and how much like Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch could drink and party. He's like, what fun I had on that set. And we're just talking, I'm just talking to Ed and he's just talking to Tom. He has no clue who really I am, but Ed Asner.
Something tells me that he probably threw some back with Dusty, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And because Dusty and Dick Murdoch were known back then in the 70s to be these crazy wild men that always loved to party. And here's, Ed Asner when he's younger,
right.
And he's probably partying along with them. And for someone in Hollywood to say someone is pretty crazy, that says something.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen and done it all. And, if you say that about Dusty and Dick Murdoch, which everybody knows that. And it was just really, really cool. And then when he became Santa / I've never seen someone command such a presence when he was performing. And even when, there was people talking and he was ready to do his thing and he just turned and he just went, shut up! And everyone was, oh my God, Ed Asner's, really mad at us.
Yeah, it was like the principal snapped at everybody.
But then he kind of looked and he smirked. So it was just, but he, honestly, he reminded me of God. God is speaking and you need to be quiet. He should be cast as God instead of Santa in every film.
He definitely had some divine, attention-grabbing qualities that were pretty present there. Now, one of my favorite parts about having you on that movie, aside from, like we had talked about in the beginning, I'm all about, obviously it's a movie and sometimes you have to fake some things and it's not always going to be quite like how it's going to be in real life. But we tried to make the wrestling aspect of it and at least the presentation of this show, the Gingerbread Brawl, as accurate as it could be. So it was great to have Tommy there just for the consulting and letting me know. Because, folks, if you don't know it, Tommy Dreamer has his own promotion. It's called the House of Hardcore, and it's amazing. So Tommy's run shows, how many shows a year do you run, Tommy?
We've done a lot.
It's like dozens and dozens of shows. So my point is just, he does this all the time. So having him there just to be like, even stuff like, how would they set up the chairs? Like, how would, would the wrestler walk from, do you think we should put the aisle here? Or, where would the camera positions be? And so having him in there for that was terrific. And my favorite part was, there's a part where Tommy jumps in there and, the crowd is starting to lose it. Because one of the pro wrestlers that was supposed to arrive can't make it in no shows. So the fans start going nuts and they start getting unruly. And Tommy goes, I got to save this thing before we lose the whole show. And he jumps in the ring as the commentator to kind of, calm everybody down. And I wanted to have a scene where, he gets this big fat drink just thrown at him. And I wanted to explode, be a funny scene. So, of course, I like to get involved in movies. I'm a big kid sometimes. So I'm like, I want to throw the soda. Let me throw it. So the first soda, I get this big full thing. And we used water because Tommy had a nice suit on. And, we didn't want to ruin it. So a nice full, giant, extra large cup of water. And I chuck it. We call action. This cup goes sailing over Tommy's head, hits this old lady in the front row, and explodes on her face like this giant blast of water. Could have given her a black eye. But she was the biggest sport about it, the biggest sweetheart. She was laughing. She had a blast. We're all laughing. I believe I even know the guy. Shout out to Miss Wolfenden, Gary Wolfenden's mom. Glad she didn't take legal action, and I'm glad she was very nice about it. But the second drink, I believe I got Tommy right in the numbers on the second one. But that was a lot of fun. That was a fun story. And it was
having
just so
to stand
fun.
there when someone's going to throw something at your face. It is, it's a little nerve-wracking in the sense of, because your job is to get hit in the face. You can't move because normally anyone throws something at you, you don't want to duck it away or put your hands up.
Now, Tommy, wouldn't you say that you're the perfect person to be hired for that? I mean, you've probably been hit in the head face area with multiple objects over the years, so I couldn't have thought of a better guy to have in that spot.
Absolutely.
So, on to some Christmas themes. What is your favorite Christmas movie? Aside from Saving Christmas, obviously.
Listen, I say this all the time. Your films, I wish more people would see them, even from your earliest film that I did with you, Army of the Damned, which I feel is a freaking awesome Halloween movie. But
thank you.
You learned because you trusted actors and you let them kind of put stuff together on their own when they were forgetting their lines, and everyone was dropping F-bombs. So when you go in to edit it, you realize how many F-bombs are in this movie, but it was a learning experience for you. And this movie, I'm glad it got the critical acclaim of top Christmas movies to watch recently. Put out that
Hulu. Apple News. Hulu says it's one of the top 12 movies that your kids should watch for Christmas this year.
Because it's a really good film, and I hope more and more people see it. And my favorite Christmas movie, I'm kind of old school. I will always go back to I want to say they're claymation, but the Rudolphs and the Frosties.
Oh,
I always get upset.
The Heat Miser.
Frosty, yeah, man, I was a big Heat Miser, Mark. Rudolph, I have on my Christmas tree every character from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
That's cool.
I do not think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, that's getting overblown, isn't it? I'm sick of seeing that crap.
Yeah, I'm really against that debate. And from someone who came out to see it, went to the movies when it first came out, and it wasn't pitched as a Christmas movie. It was just pitched as a Bruce Willis action film. So, I would say that old school theme with any time it would come on. They're not really movies, but at the time, I guess.
No, that's an awesome answer. I love that answer. And those movies have that kind of music that like you hear it and it puts you right into that, like you feel like a little kid on the floor again. So that's always nice. Yes. That's what we love about movies. It takes us back to a place. And our final question, Tommy, is, and hey, if you don't have one, I get it, because I don't even think I have one, but you got any New Year's resolutions for this year coming up?
I guess two. One is always to lose weight. That's been mine forever, and I kind of sometimes go for it, and sometimes I don't. But the older you get, the harder and harder it is to lose weight. That's the easy one in the sense of to make. But I really have been eliminating negative out of my life. And when I say negative,
Love that.
I mean negative people. You look at social media can be such a toxic world. And we also have friends that are negative and toxic.
Yep.
And it's, you know what? You're not really my friend if all I have to do is hear about your problems. You're not, you don't really know about stuff that's going on with me. Or even if those people follow you on social media and you follow them. And I know people actually have the hard time of, should I unfollow somebody? And there's so many people, especially in my world with professional wrestling, where there's people who try to garner fans' reactions to kind of keep themselves relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even want those people on my timeline. I don't want those people, their tweets or their posts on anywhere. So just kind of trying to...
I love that.
I've done a really good job in 2019. And
I fucking love that, man. And I think you're really hitting something there, and I find myself doing it a lot too. And I'll be scrolling down and there's something that bothers me, whether it's, how someone handles themselves or how they do it. If something bothers you, unfollow that shit. Just get rid of it. If you don't like the way it makes you feel, see you later.
Absolutely. It's cool. Like, I've been a wrestler since I'm 18. I've been a wrestling fan since I'm 9 years old. The good part about my life, I'll look up what's trending. When I see somebody's name trending, I'm like, oh my God, hopefully that person didn't die.
Right.
As a
wrestler, that's a legitimate concern. Because,
Yeah, but like, even if it's a famous person.
Right.
And then, oh no, they're trending for something bad. I live in this wrestling world, and the best part about, I guess, Twitter, my tweets are tailored, or you get what's trending for what your likes are. So I'll live in my fake wrestling world, because at times it's good versus evil, but you know what? Majority of the times, good usually wins, and that's kind of the world I like to live in.
Well, I love that. I love pro wrestling. I love working with you, Tommy, and I hope you and your family have an awesome holiday season. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, and we'd love to have you back on and do like a full-blown episode with you one of these days. That'd be awesome.
Anytime. I'd do anything for you. My brother, I love you.
Awesome. Love you too, man. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Tom.
Take care. All right. Well, that was great talking with Tommy.
Tommy Dreamer.
I love that guy, man. I really do. He's a guy that, we've talked about him on the show before. Was in my very first movie, Self Storage, even though it was just a tiny little cameo, and has just always been there to support me and give me advice, and great businessman. He's a kind of, not only does he mix it up in the ring, he does a lot of behind-the-scenes action. He's a writer for a lot of television, wrestling television, things like that. So, a big bro in the industry. A holiday salute to Tommy Dreamer. Had a great time chatting with him, and we're supposed to be calling Mikey Bennett at 12:45, so... we're about 10 minutes away from getting on the line with Mike Bennett. We might as well jump into some other beats here. The nice thing is, Tommy kind of covered a lot of the stuff on my run sheet.
Yeah, right.
He covered Ed Asner. Having Ed Asner on the movie was great. I think we should spend just a couple more minutes about him, because the big thing about him was he was the iconic Santa in Elf. Everybody remembers Elf.
Oh yeah, that's
he
right.
basically sends our main beloved elf character, played by Will Ferrell, out on his adventure in the beginning of the movie. And then he comes back at the end. So Ed Asner, can literally play Santa Claus rolling out of bed. Doesn't need a lot of experience. So we were so happy to get him. And a little bit of the other cast we can get into. Brooke Langdon played the mom. She was so talented, and just like, again, I'm not a mom. I'm just not. I never will be, Maybe I could have some motherly qualities. Maybe I could try to put myself in the mindset of a mom the best I can. But let's be honest, Daryl. Look at me. I'm not going to be a mom.
No.
So I rely on women like we talked about Jennifer Taylor in the last episode, who played the mom in Arlo. And now we have Brooke Landon, who, these women have children. I don't have children. So, I don't quite know that connection. So it was great to have Brooke there to kind of be like, maybe take a look at the script and be like, if this just happened, and this was my kid, I might do this. And And, I listen to that shit, man, because like I said, like, I don't know. I don't have a kid, Like, my only experience about parenting is from seeing how my parents did it. And they're great, but that's not how it always goes. And you gotta, everyone's a little different. So Brooke was great to, like, again, like, help me put that extra level of authenticity into the family dynamic. Patrick Muldoon, let's talk about him for a minute. Patrick Muldoon's he's a career worker. This guy's been on television and movies for, the last 25 years.
Yeah.
You've seen his face and you're like, oh my God. I know that guy. A lot of people might remember. My first Patrick Muldoon experiences? Big Saved by the Bell fan when I was a kid. Come on, you got to be. And he played, I hope I'm not butchering this name, but I think he was Jeff, and he was like the hunky older guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Who I think like ran the Max, the diner that they would eat at. And he like swoops Kelly up. He scoops her up for a minute from Zach.
That's right. I remember that.
That's no fucking joke, dude. Like, that's an epic, classic television breakup, Zach and Kelly. So he's responsible for the deterioration of Zach and Kelly. So, I mean, that was a pretty big deal right in itself. But obviously, he's done so much other stuff since then. I loved having Patrick on set because he's so loose, he's so fun. He's just like... He's like having a big creative force on set that's always willing to play, and he's very much like into the rehearsal aspect, which I kind of liked. Like we would fire up a scene and just go back and forth, and he would just do it for me and do it for me, do it for me. Just like I'm talking like a 2-page monologue. He had like a lot of big fat monologues. He kind of played this elf character, but it was like an elf, picture an elf, but he's also like Alec Baldwin in Glengarry Glen Ross. He's like the tough salesman, first prize $10,000, second prize set of steak knives. He's like the badass tough elf. And he's pitching Santa on like, hey man, listen, like the whole red suit thing, like that's played out. Like you got to change up your image, social media. He's trying to get Santa to modernize
with the times.
Get with the times, exactly. So he had a lot of monologues, and he was all about the rehearsal process. I really dug that about him. And it's just one of those things where, like, I think the coolest Patrick Muldoon story is he didn't know how to ice skate, and we have this big scene that we shot at an ice skating rink. And I said to him that morning, I was like, he's like, I don't know how to skate. And he's got this, like, classic, like, he's a classic California bro. I mean, like, and he really is that. Like, he invented that. He's like, oh, man, I don't skate. He's from California. He's like, I don't skate. I was like, well, aren't you, like, concerned about that? Because, like, I've tried to skate before. I'm not very nimble. I'm not a fucking skater. I can't do it.
I've never been on ice skates in my life. So.
You don't really look like you've been on ice skates.
No,
I can't picture that.
On ice skates.
So, basically, it's one of those things where, like, I was like, aren't you afraid that you'll, like, bust your ass? How are we going to shoot this scene? You can skate around the... He's like, I'll figure it out. He straps on the fucking skates, and, like, in 10 minutes, he's skating around. And he's just, like, doing it. And I don't know if he was hustling me, because he was skating pretty damn good. So, like, actors are weird like that. Actors been, like, they just know how to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just, like, know how to, like, pick... Actors are good at doing a lot of little nonsensical things, like, at once. Like, maybe throw darts, shoot pool, like, the little... Random things,
like skills that you might have to pay to like train somebody on. Like,
yeah,
actors are like, no, I could probably do that.
Like, I actually had to do that once in this movie. I've rode a camel before.
Yeah,
it's like, what? Like, yeah, I had to do it once. Okay, so we talked about Patrick Muldoon. A lot of other really cool. I mean, the kids were tremendous in this movie. You had mentioned it because Daryl's tradition is he watches the movie usually the night before or watch it
like in the morning.
And he said one of the first things he said was like, "Oh, you had the kid from Arlo in the movie. The little girl from Arlo was in it, and of course, Lindsay Blanchard. We worked together on Arlo, and she was just so great and so prepared and." Again, remember, this was a kind of movie that we didn't have a lot of time to shoot it in. I think we shot this whole movie in 14 days.
Oh, wow.
So, like, we knew that we needed to have kids that were going to, like, get it together and hit their marks and, be on point. And we knew Lindsay would be one of those kids. And I didn't even, to be honest with you, I didn't have time to do this, like, massive audition process either. So, like, you go to the people that you know are going to show up and be great and, you can kind of rely on them. Lindsay was one of those people, and Jack Renault was, of course, her brother. And Jack, we talked about on episode 5, the Slimebuck episode. He was the kid in Slimebuck who played opposite Jonah there. And, you know, I'd worked with Jack before. I built a relationship with Jack's parents and, you know, Lindsay's mom. And, you know, it was one of those things where it was comfortable. It felt good. I knew that the kids could nail it. Right. And it kind of just made sense, you know. So basically we put together this great team. These young kids, a kid named Jalen was awesome. And they were just, you know, they went in and they did it. They didn't have a lot of time to rehearse. They didn't have a lot of time to kind of, you know, get to know each other. And in a short period of time, they all gelled. I mean, they were all like little best friends by the end of it. You know, they were all
that's what's up.
Buddy, and, you know, taking pictures. And you know, we had a blast with those kids. And I think it shows on screen that they had that, you know, kind of dynamic. We get about 2 or 3 minutes before we call Mike Bennett. I think I'll squeeze in this one little story. It was kind of funny. It involves the kids. One of the things that they were adamant about in the beginning, we're talking about the company HMB that had to actually go, once we made this thing, it was their job to actually sell it, get it out there to Lionsgate. So basically they were like, look, these movies need snow. You need to have snow. And we're like, all right, well, look, you know, you're shooting the movie in April. Like, I can't guarantee there's going to be snow in Rhode Island in April. And we're like, all right, well, you know, we really, anything you can do, you know, can you do it in post, figure out a way, fake snow, whatever. It's like, okay. And then about 2 weeks before we were supposed to start shooting, this massive blizzard came at like the last week of March.
Oh, that's
like
great.
And it was such a big storm that we had like days notice. Like we knew it was coming. And I called up those guys and I said, listen, you got to advance me some funds right now. You got to give me, like, I'll put together a budget. You got to give me like a 1-day special. Let me just get together a small unit with the kids, go out and shoot this snow stuff because you ain't going to get it again. It probably isn't going to happen. And it didn't. It didn't snow again. And all that snow had melted by the time we started shooting 2 weeks later. So luckily we were able to kind of like fire up the jets, just get one camera, one small camera crew. I think we had sound. I don't know if we had sound, honestly. I think it was all MOS, which if you don't know what that is, that's basically like when you're just shooting images that you know that you're going to put to either music or something else later. So there was no dialogue that day. It was just the kids playing in the snow. We did a lot of great things. They built snowmen. We went to all these different locations and went to Roger Williams Park for you Rhode Islanders out there.
Yeah, saw some of the landmarks.
Yeah, that's a cool place to go for some snow adventures. So we're about a minute away here. I'm going to dial up Mike Bennett. We're going to get Mike on the line. Mike played Mike the Miracle. He was basically called the Miracle, and he was this every kid's favorite babyface good guy wrestler in our world that we created. So it'll be fun to talk to Mike. I'm going to get him on the line.
Hello?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here with my co-host, Daryl.
What's going on, Mike?
Hey, man. How are you?
Great.
And we're just talking movies. We're talking Saving Christmas. I just had your buddy Tommy Dreamer on. We're just having a couple of... Yeah,
I think Tommy Dreamer's everybody's buddy.
He really is kind of just the universal... He's like the universal buddy of the world.
Yeah, he's the universal friend. Everyone's friends with Tommy. You can... it's like Kevin Bacon. Somehow we can on the Tommy Dreamer.
That's funny. We could totally play the Tommy Dreamer game. Yeah, we were just chatting and we were talking about, you know, kind of what a fun shoot that was and... how, you know, wrestling can be, you know, a lot of people think about wrestling as this edgy kind of product, but wrestling is very much a family-friendly form of entertainment, you know?
Right.
A lot of kids love wrestling, you know, they grow up on wrestling, and that's the kind of wrestling that we were going for in this movie. You know, obviously wrestling is such a big genre. There's so many different sub-genres in wrestling, but this was just good old-fashioned family fun, kind of old school pro wrestling, and it was great to have you on. I'm kind of just telling our audience here that Mike played basically our big good guy that everybody loves, you know, the guy that, he's the champion, and all the kids kind of go to see. And unfortunately, in the film, Mike's character hurts his leg, and he can't make the gingerbread brawl, which is the big event that all the kids have been looking forward to. And he's got to come on screen, and basically comes on there and has a promo where he says, sorry folks, Wally World is closed, and everyone's disappointed. And then, of course, Santa Claus played by Ed Asner, performs a Christmas miracle, or I should say, a holiday miracle, in the middle of the ring. And boom.
Very, very PC of you.
Yes, it's a holiday miracle, guys.
Yes.
And boom, Mike Bennett is in the middle of the ring as the miracle, this character that all the kids came to see. So, Mike, tell us, what was your experience like on Saving Christmas, playing the miracle with Ed Asner?
I had a blast doing it. It was, I was thinking about it earlier today because we texted earlier, and I was thinking about making the movie, and honestly, I kept thinking the strangest thing for me about making that movie was actually doing the wrestling scenes, which sounds funny because that's what I do, but when you wrestle in front of a crowd, and obviously there was a crowd there, but you don't stop. And so the idea of like having a match where I wrestle for 2 minutes and then cut, all right, and then do it again. It was just this weird dynamic for me because I'm used to, all right, you get a 10-minute match, go do the 10-minute match, and then you're done. I'm not used to doing moves over and over and over again. But yeah, the whole experience for me though was a blast. I mean, obviously getting able to be on the scene in a scene with Ed Asner was so much fun, and he just commands a room. I was actually at a WWE show recently, and Mick Foley had just watched the movie, and he was telling me, first of all, he's very upset that he didn't get a role in that movie.
Oh, man.
He's very mad that Tommy Dreamer got a role and he did not.
I don't think we can't afford him.
Well, he said, so according to Mick, his role, if he had the role, he would have taken Matt Taven's role.
Wow.
And he was, but no. So we were just talking about the movie because he had watched it, and he was just telling me, he's like, yeah, it's just there's something about Ed Asner that he just engulfs a scene, and he just takes over a screen wherever he's in it. And to me, you can really feel that being there with him. It's just, even at the age he's at, he's incredible. So
yeah,
that was
it's so funny you say that,
moment.
man. We were just talking about how, one of the moments, like at one point people were chattering and he just kind of like said, silence, and everyone just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he just demands it. He's like your grandfather that's been through like every World War imaginable. When he walks into the room, you're like, oh, okay. Time to get serious. Grandpa's here.
Yeah, it's definitely a different quality when Ed is on the scene. It was a lot of fun, and I want to thank you again for Mike did a lot of the kind of, we'll call it stunt coordination for the movie. Putting together that little move. And I don't know if you remember, Mike, but we were working with, of course, we had Gangrel, David Heath,
yes.
And we had to. I was telling the guys how we had to kind of soften his image. He wasn't the crazed killer vampire. He was just a friendly Viking.
Yes.
And we couldn't be spitting blood in the front row. But we did this little bit, and of course DG Haven, and one of our producers, David Gear. And I don't know if you remember, this was really funny. I actually have this on tape. Maybe we'll play this on our social media. But my original plan was, I was like, Mike, do you think you could do like a power bomb and like power bomb David onto Gangrel? And you go, well, we'll give it a shot. And I remember, like, the first attempt, like, you got David halfway up, and he just couldn't get it, like, do the full thing. And it looked, and it was like, you're like, nah, it's not that, we're going to kill someone here. Let's not do that. So it just goes to show you how, like, these moves are really tough, guys. They're so difficult to pull these moves off. You see it on TV, and you have no idea the level of athleticism it takes. And I'm not shitting on David. He's probably going to be mad at me for saying that. But it's just an incredible level of athleticism to do that shit. And it's unbelievable.
And I think also it's on the other end, it's an incredible amount of trust that the person has to put into you to be able to, like, if I'm going to pick someone up over my head, they have to believe that, okay, I'm going to let him pick me up over my head, and I'm going to be relaxed enough. And I think that ended up being the issue. I think it was just such a weird move that we just, I just remember I got him up in the air, and I was like, "Yeah, someone's gonna die here, so let's not do this."
Yeah, and we appreciate you for being so kind of mindful of our very small insurance policy that we have.
My dad's a lawyer, so I'm very well aware of how it works.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. I appreciate that, and I remember one moment, your wife Maria was there by monitor. And it was fun, and Maria did a little cameo in the movie, too, which was really cool. But she was watching your scene by the monitor, and I was just having so much fun watching you guys wrestle and, seeing these moves play out on my little monitor. I felt like it was the closest I could get to the human action figures, in this world that I created. And I just want to thank you for being a part of that, because you know what, I mean, we've talked many times on all the films we've done together. You know, I'm a big fan of the genre of wrestling, what it means, what it represents to people. So I want to thank you for being part of what, I'll make a lot of movies before I'm done, hopefully. But, I'll never forget just kind of sitting there by monitor and, seeing this wrestling action that you and I kind of coordinated, and then watching it play out on screen and seeing all the fans pop and knowing that we made it all up and it didn't really happen. It's it's something manufactured.
It's kind of like if you were a fan of wrestling growing up, that's kind of like every little kid's dream to be a promoter or a booker and be like, all right, I need you guys to go do this, and then watch it unfold. It's really cool. It
was a hell of an energy. It was really cool, and I want to thank you for that. And
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll keep it moving here. I want to ask you now, of course, aside from Saving Christmas, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Oh God! So I'm probably going to get a lot of flack or heat for this, because I don't know if many people consider it a Christmas movie, or that's the great debate. But I'm going to go with Die Hard.
Ah, very nice.
Hands down, I watch it every Christmas.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's 100%. I don't know if the debate is still in the air, but in my eyes, it's 100% Christmas movie.
Well, you know what's funny? And I think we might have to do maybe a side segment one of these days. Maybe we'll do it for next year's holiday show. Tommy Dreamer, your pal, specifically just said, I'll tell you what, I don't believe that Die Hard's a Christmas movie. I'm not into that. So maybe we'll set up on an online debate.
Can we please?
It'd be so funny. Have you guys debate all these points, and we'll have a judge.
I'll crush them.
Hey man, ho ho ho! I've got a machine gun. What does it say? Ho ho ho! I've got a fucking machine gun. I mean,
something like that.
That constitutes.
Now I have a machine gun. Something like that.
Christmas, it's a Christmas movie.
It's definitely a Christmas movie.
Of course, they play Christmas music the whole movie.
Christmas music. It was a Christmas party. It was at Christmas. Came out on Christmas.
The Nakatomi Towers never looked better.
I don't know how it's not a Christmas movie. I'm pretty sure. Did it? I don't think it came out on Christmas time though. Did it? I think it might have came out in the summertime.
I think pretty sure it was a Christmas. It came out
Did it? Oh, okay.
In December.
Well, then I stand corrected. Then even more so.
That even plays into your favor more.
Yeah. So I was trying to give a point to Dreamer, but now I'll take one.
Well, that's great. So Mike Bennett's favorite movie is Die Hard for the holidays, and finally, number 3, our final question of our holiday spectacular here. Do you have any New Year's resolutions? And if you don't, it's all good, because I mean, not a lot of people get into that stuff either.
I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm pretty happy in life right now in general. I don't know. I'm always trying to get in better shape, so I'll just throw that against the wall that I want to be in better shape.
Is that possible, Mike? You look amazing, dude. What are you running
thank you. But I guess if I just throw it out there, then hopefully the universe will help me with it. But I don't know. It just maybe be a better dad and a better husband. I know that's all cliche and stuff, but I haven't really. I don't smoke or drink, and I quit drugs a long time ago. So I'm pretty happy.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you're in an awesome place, and hey, maybe for the other side of the coin, it's like, hey, why do we choose this one time of year to just put it all together?
Yes.
I think what we can take away from that is every day should be a New Year's resolution to try.
I agree.
Be a little bit better.
I always say that. I don't think we should strive for one day. I think everyone should just try to be better every single day, because when you make it one day, you put far too much pressure on yourself.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, it's like you got to wait all this time, and then you get there, and if you fuck it up, you're a loser now.
Yeah, if you fail, you got to wait a whole nother freaking year.
Right. Like, oh, I guess I'll fuck off for 11 months.
Well, I know I said I quit smoking, but I have to wait a year to actually do it now.
Exactly. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Happy holidays to you and your family. It was so great to have you on the show and just kind of shoot the breeze. And I would love to have you back on for a much more in-depth episode one of these days.
Yes, please. Whenever you want, let me know. I'd love to sit and chat.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks so much. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, dude.
All right,
right back at you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mike Bennett, guys. We love Mike. Mike's an awesome dude. And Mike's been working with me since Almost Mercy. That was his first time. You check the archives. Listen to our Almost Mercy episode. There's a little bit more about Mike and some cool stunts that he did on the movie. And another one of these guys that, you know, when you're around good people, you just try to, as a director, you're always like, you know, not that you're every movie trying to be like, oh, what could Mike play? But a lot of times you'll think of something where it's like, oh, wow, that'd be great for Mike. You know, it's just
right.
Great to have this like Rolodex of these awesome, talented people that I can kind of go to, and Mike's one of them, and he's been one of them for a while, and you know, I'm sure our paths will meet again on the movie set of life. But we should get that debate going. I don't know, man. At first, I was in the dreamer camp, and I thought, shit, maybe he's right. Maybe Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie. But then Mike made some valid points, and I kind of swayed. I'm a fence jumper on this.
It's okay to flip-flop on that one.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
I'll
allow it.
Thank you. We need to have somebody, you know, forgive me once in a while. So, guys, those were our two interviews. I do have to get into a couple of other little points here before we close out this episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about just the production of the movie, because there were a lot of really, really talented people that went into actually making this movie in such a short period of time and putting it together. And, you know, obviously, what does every movie need? It needs a look, right? You need sets, you need art, you need a production designer. My production designer on this movie, a little bit different here. I mean, normally we have John Del Ponte as our production designer. We've talked about him on the show a bunch of times. One of the people that he's kind of brought up, and we've talked about her on the show, is Ali Malillo. So Ali took the lead on this one. John was doing some other work and wasn't able to dedicate all the time on such short notice. And also, you know, Ali had kind of been doing this a lot in New York, and she had been working her craft, and she started off as basically an art department intern on Almost Mercy, and here it is just a few years later, and she's, you know, production designing, and she learned a lot over the years and put it all together. And this wasn't her first movie that she designed, but it's probably one of the early ones. And man, she did just such a great job with, you know, such a limited budget. I mean, we did not have a lot of money. We put this thing together, you know, obviously, like finding Christmas decorations in April isn't easy. You know, it's usually like you've missed the post-holiday sales rush. So she had to do a lot of work just to kind of even get all that stuff together. The gingerbread brawl, building that. I mean, she did a lot of cool things like cannibalizing a lot of things that, you know, items that we used in other movies, props that we used in other movies. Literally, the walls from a movie we made called Anders Manor that we used to build a set that was a psychiatrist's office, those walls were converted into gingerbread houses that went in the arena for the gingerbread brawl. So, like, all parts of the buffalo were used, and the movie ended up having a really great look. Because remember, guys, this is a Christmas movie, and I don't want to tell you how many times these guys that I was working for told me, like, Christmas in every shot, Christmas in every shot. That was, like, drilled in my brain. So we had to make sure that the design was there so that, you know, she used lots of red, lots of green. And one of the cool things is we actually shot some of this in my house. We shot right in my garage. You know, we took my garage, 2-car garage, emptied it out, and the kids needed like a hangout. We knew that we would be shooting a lot of that stuff there. So again, man, low-budget movies, locations are very expensive. You want controllability. I got a garage. What are we going to go rent one for?
Right.
You know, we shot that thing right in the garage, kept our numbers down. I knew that I had a big enough house to facilitate, you know, hair, makeup, wardrobe, a green room for the actors, things like that. And it was really close to the hotel where all the actors were staying. shooting at my house. And I knew that, Allie would have easy access to get in there. And, like, remember, prep can get expensive. If you got to rent a space for prep, they're in there working for weeks. So it's like, tack on an extra, it could be thousands to rent a space to do it right. So we saved a lot of money doing it that way. So basically, Ali Malillo crushed it with that. We had a lot of our return characters, Joe Cantor and Brenda McNally and Marissa Sueya and just a lot of awesome people that I've worked with a bunch of times. And we made it happen. We shot, like I said, at the ice rink in Cranston, a lot of like really cool places in Cranston. I got to shoot at my high school, which is something that, is kind of a little bit of a filmmaker bucket list thing. My high school, Cranston High School West, has a very traditional kind of Americana. It looks like you shoot a John Hughes movie in my high school. Like, it just looks like it's out of like an 80s movie.
Yeah.
I like that look. It's got the classic look to it. So I wanted that. We got lucky, man. The movie happened to fall on April vacation.
Nice.
So that whole, I made a couple calls. Some local government folks helped me out. Shout out to Mayor Alan Fung. And, of course, shout out to local politician and a friend of mine, Ed Brady, who got me... Yeah, you know Ed. Yeah, he got me a couple of contacts. Ed knows everybody, especially in Cranston. So Ed hooked it up with some contacts there, the right people to call to get the ball rolling on that. And, hey, man, next thing you know it, we were shooting right in Cranston West. And we got lucky, too. Like I said, happened to be April vacation. So it was great, man. It was such an experience to be back there and doing my thing. I mean, not to get corny, cheesy, hokey, but I was literally, like, in those hallways making movies about, 15 years before that. So it was crazy to be back there with a, crew on a, it's not a big budget, but still, this was around $250,000, probably, something like that, and, going making a movie. So that was a cool feeling for me. And, we talked about John Del Ponte. I gotta say, we have some amazing photos of this, and there's footage. We talked about Ed Asner, and Tommy mentioned it. Ed was going through some medical issues, he was, and David Gear did such a great job. Our producer David did such a great job of kind of being there for Ed during these issues and, handling everything for him and taking him around. And that's part of the job of being a producer. A lot of people think producing is all this fun, sexy movie-making stuff. A lot of producing is taking care of people and relationships with people and, building those relationships, fostering them, letting them grow, making people comfortable. And David's really good at that. And, Ed was going through a big medical issue. And, God, what a trooper. That guy kind of was just like, I'll be okay, don't worry about it. Give me a chair to sit in, make sure I got a comfortable spot to sit that's close by, and I'll get through it. We only had Ed for a few days. He wasn't there for a long time. So we had to get that stuff done. And then he was on a plane leaving, So it was like, you don't get the Ed stuff, it's not going to be in the movie. So there were some limitations. I mean, Ed was, I believe at the time, 89 years old. So, he was... we had a tough time doing some things and moving him around. Like Tommy said, he was in a wheelchair at times, but, could do some things. And I knew that what we required at the end of the movie, which is he literally levitates and performs this holiday miracle and starts, like, shooting presents out to everybody and doing all this magic. I knew that we weren't going to be strapping Ed to any kind of harness and, raising him 20 feet above the ring. That wasn't going to happen. So John Del Ponte, to the rescue, came in and he put Ed Asner's costume on. He put on a Santa beard and he donned the red suit. And we strapped him to a harness. You guys are going to laugh. This is literally how we did it. This probably isn't safe. Don't try this at home. No, it was safe. It was safe enough. We took a winch from that, like, you would literally, like, put at the back of an ATV to, like, pull something. And we attached that to one of the steel girders in the ceiling. And then we attached a link to John's back and your standard harness that a guy would wear, painting or up on a ladder or whatever. And John's in a harness in the Santa suit, and we have somebody off camera raising this pulley device. And sure enough, you know, we were able to remove the pulley in post-production, get rid of it.
Right.
So in the movie, it appears as though John just kind of levitates and starts doing some Christmas action. And from the right angles with the beard and everything, like, you can't tell it's not Ed.
No.
A lot of people don't know that. Like, no one's ever said, like, that wasn't Ed. Like, yeah, like, so you didn't really notice. Yeah, that's John Del Ponte giving presents to all the children. Now, John, if you know John, I love John, so don't take this the wrong way. But he's a gruff guy. You know, he's got tattoos all over himself. He's got a big beard. I'm not saying he's not friendly, but he's not the friendliest looking guy. And there were some scenes where I'm like, John, you got to be like a little more like nice to the kids. You know, when you're up there, a little more like, you know,
a little more Santa-like.
Santa. You can't just be stiff up there. So I got to say, to John's credit, he really got into it. He embraced the role. And by the end of it, I mean, he was flowing and graceful and soaring through the sky. And, oh, man, we have a life of fun footage of John in that Santa suit flying around. Every Christmas, John's going to put, forever, I think, John will post some kind of photo of him in full Santa regalia flying around. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So shout out to John. Thank you for doing that. Another one of the cool things, I'm just going to go through this quick. I just want to hit some of these bullet points. I know we got to wrap it up soon, but Cranston Fire Department, they were really cool. Remember, we needed snow, and they were being maniacs about snow. We did have our little fun snow shot, but I like to push the envelope. I'm always like, give me an inch, I'm going to try and take a mile. So I'm like, well, what other scenes can I get snow in? And then I realized, like, whoa, the fire trucks, don't they shoot that foam out there? We were shooting at the Cranston Print Works. The Cranston Print Works is right across the street from a fire station. I had one of my guys just go across the street and kind of just ask him. I mean, one thing about cops and firemen, they're really cool. They're always great to have around. They're always like, they want to know what's going on.
Right.
So the firemen, when they saw this movie crew coming in, they were kind of, what's going on across the street? That's not normal. So they kind of had already come over to see what's going on. And we said, hey, do you have that foam in your truck? And they were like, oh, yeah, of course. Could you, like, shoot some of that foam on the front of this building so we can get a shot of the kids creeping around? They were like, hell yeah. And they couldn't have been more gracious about, getting that truck into position and filling that front. We're talking about a giant industrial parking lot. Filled it all up with the foam. That foam moves pretty quickly. It was actually warm. Keep in mind this is April, so it's starting to get warm. So
right.
that foam is kind of melting off. We get it pretty quick, but firemen foamed it up, had the cameras rolling, and there are a couple of shots in the movie towards the end when they're kind of like infiltrating the potential, whatever it is, the toy factory. You'll see some of that snow. That's actually fireman foam that they use to put fires out. So shout out to the Cranston Fire Department. Thanks for doing that for us. Yeah, guys, one more quick. This is like my one public service announcement of the movie. Remember we had that one day where we went and shot a bunch of stuff in the snow. We shot that in an active parking lot. There were cars around. It was one of those things where we kind of had to steal some shots. We had camera people in positions where, maybe they shouldn't have been. But obviously we did everything safe. And this is kind of just my PSA. Like, I know kids, if you're listening to this, or guys out there trying to, make their first movies, you're probably not always going to get a permit for everything. You're probably not going to do that. Sometimes you're going to steal a shot. We've all done it. Everybody's guilty of doing that. And, if you try to tell me that you've never done that before as a filmmaker, you're fucking lying to me. Because everybody's stolen a shot before somewhere. And I'm talking about, like, even on big movies, like at some point, like some kind of that stuff goes on. So my PSA is this: just if you're going to do that, guys, especially in an active area, treat it like it's real. Be careful. Be safe. If you're in a parking lot, have people positioned so that, it just happens safely. And I want you to know that I don't condone it. Get the permit. Do it safely. But if you're going to do it anyway, because you probably are, just be fucking safe about it. Because a lot of times on movies, people kind of forget that it's a very dangerous thing. We've talked about this before. It can get very crazy, and people forget sometimes that there are active roadways and that people are backing up. And Just be careful if you're fucking around with movies this holiday season. That's my holiday message to everyone.
The holiday message: get your permits, people.
Yeah, right.
And if you're not going to get your permit, do it the right way.
Don't be an idiot.
Do it the safe way.
Always be safe. Keep your head on a swivel.
Do it early in the morning when there's less traffic.
That's a good idea, Daryl. See, now we're telling them how to break the law.
Oh, well, I'm telling them. I'm telling them. I'll take that.
One other thing, shout out to, there's a couple other little quick stories. I want to talk about a couple wrestlers and we'll wrap the whole thing up. So basically, some other wrestlers that were in the movie, shout out to Matt Stryker, Matt Taven, who's doing a lot of amazing things in Ring of Honor, Vinny the Horror King, Marsiglia, David Starr's in this movie, a guy by the name of Wrecking Ball. We talked about it when we were talking to Mike. Maria Kanellis makes a really cool cameo, telling, it's a really fun scene. She's telling, 'twas the night before Christmas. She's telling that classic story, but like to a bunch of like big, burly, scary-looking wrestlers in the backstage area. But all the wrestlers are like, waiting on every word, like they're little kids and like really into it. So it's kind of funny. It's always funny to see big, scary guys acting cute and fuzzy. We like that. It's a nice little juxtaposition. The kids like that shit. Yeah, I drew a really cool picture. If you guys see, the opening of the movie opens up with this drawing of Norpole, Norpole, what is it, Maine? Is that where they're supposed to be? Norpole, Maine. And I was so nervous about this whole movie. This is the God's honest truth. I was so nervous about this movie, and I knew that I wanted the movie to open up with like this traditional kind of like cool map. Because remember, these are like conspiracy theory kids, so maybe they would have like drawn a map of the whole layout of the town in case they needed to like plan something. So I was like, well, I want to open the movie on this really, cute kind of drawing of the town. I'm no Norman Rockwell by any means, but I like to draw. Sometimes when I'm stressed out, I'll draw. It makes me forget about things. So I was so nervous about putting this movie together in such a short period of time and making all these elements come together and like how the fuck are we going to pull this off, and Ed Asner and Santa Claus flying through the air and special effects, visual effects. I was just so nervous that I drew this pretty detailed map of the town of Norpole for like, it took me hours, and finally, like, it was funny, like, my mom would like come by and like see, like, check on me, how I'm doing. Like, I was like, Mom, I need you to help me color this thing. So, like, the map you see at the beginning of the movie, I was so stressed out. I was literally hanging out with my mom, drawing a goddamn map and coloring it in just to pass the time between conference calls to figure out, like, A, is this movie actually happening? Because, things can get dicey sometimes a couple weeks before a movie. Financing drops. What's going to happen? Are things going to fall out? A lot of questions. So the map that you see in the beginning of this movie is a direct result of all the fucking nervous energy that I had to try and make this movie happen in such a short period of time. So I guess if you're going to go nuts, get a pen, get a paper, draw something, maybe you'll have something to express yourself.
Nice. And you had a good opening credit scene out of it.
Oh, thanks, man. I like that old school shit, old school drawing. Cool drawing to open things up. Let's see. Anything else I'm missing here? Talking about this Christmas classic. We did, this is kind of, I got two more little funny ones, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. We shot at an ice rink, and, we talked about that a little bit. Patrick Muldoon couldn't skate, but luckily we had this guy by the name of Kyle Izzo, who was, I believe on this one, he worked he was either an associate producer, or he was our second AD, or UPM. He had a very important job, because Kyle kind of does everything. That's why I can't remember right this second, but, he was, played hockey in college and really good skater. So our DP, he was like an okay skater, Sam Eilerton, but remember, he's got to operate the camera. So there were a lot of scenes where, like, Kyle would be on skates pulling Sam in a sled or, like, in some kind of, like on a crate. So Kyle, he skated his ass off that day. And he was exhausted by the end of the day. He was skating for 8 hours. I mean, it's like playing 3 hockey games in a row. Pushing a camera person, like acting as a dolly on the ice, which was pretty crazy. So shout out to Kyle for getting through that. And also, this is kind of funny. We did have a dog. He's since passed. Rest in peace, Rico. The cute little dog that you see in the movie. Not a trained dog. He was Allie Malillo. We talked about her, our production designer. It was her sister, Abby's dog. And he was just this cute little white dog, and he kind of, white like snow, and I just figured, like, yeah, he's like a little holiday dog, and he's cute, tiny enough where he didn't really do anything. He didn't have to do anything. We weren't asking anything of the dog, kind of just like be a dog. But we had him in the ice skating scene, and I remember I was like, oh, it'd be cute if he's, like, watching everyone skate by, and we just get, like, a shot of the dog, and he's just watching everyone skate by. And we ended up getting that shot. It was cute. We used it. Everybody broke. I broke everyone. I sent everyone home. And then somebody said, like, let's put the dog on ice. Let's see what he does. And the cameras are gone now. I'm like, he's not going to go on the fucking ice. I was like, this is a hazard. We put the dog on the ice. Bro, he starts fucking skating like Wayne Gretzky. He's, like, fucking gliding through. He's, like, making moves. And he loves it. And I'm like, why the fuck did we rap? Like, this would have been... I could have fucking done something with this. I could have used this anywhere. And that's one of those things where, like... You learn every time you make a movie. Like, I should have got on my phone. Like, these are things you could do this as the director. And this is why I'm saying to you, this is why I mentioned this on the show. Like, you got to learn from these experiences. I could have just called my camera department right then and be like, guys, get back here. I know you clocked out. I want to just give me one camera, give me one guy. We'll figure it out later. I got to get a shot of this fucking dog on the ice. Even if I didn't have the lights, even if the grip department got wrapped and I sent everybody home and it was just a shot of the dog on ice and it didn't even match the lighting scheme, it was so visually unique. And you got to understand, it's a kids' movie. They don't give a fuck about lighting. They don't know about that shit. They just want to see a cute dog skate on the ice. I should have, in retrospect, I should have been like, no, fuck that. Get me a camera. We're shooting this dog today. That sounds terrible. I meant shooting him with film. We're not going to actually take shots at an animal. This is a animal-friendly podcast, right, Daryl?
Absolutely.
Daryl has a lion on his hat right now, actually.
That's right.
It's a Detroit lion.
He's safe. He's not. He's harmless.
He's harmless. That's funny. Yeah, guys, I mean, that about wraps it up. We kind of had a fun, little bit of a unique show today. I keep forgetting that we're taping this show. Daryl hasn't looked at the camera once.
Maybe once.
He's like, oh, hey.
Hello, world.
Guys, we're trying this out this week. It's our holiday special. We're going to give it a whirl. If it was a little rinky-dink, if it was a little rusty, we're working through the beats. We'll get better at it, we promise. But we do wish everybody a happy holidays. We're happy to do the show today. We're so happy. Cool talking to Tommy. Cool talking to Mike. Fun to hear their opposing perspectives on Die Hard.
So before we leave, you have to tell us what your favorite Christmas movie is. Aside from, obviously, Saving Christmas.
That's a good question, Daryl. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase and Randy Quaid. Love that movie. There's one of those. Everybody's got that movie that they watch every holidays with the family. That was ours. How about you? What's your favorite Christmas movie?
Mine is actually The Grinch.
Ah, nice.
I love that movie. The cartoon version. Not the Jim Carrey, which was okay, but the cartoon classic is one of my favorites. And then also the Rudolph. I just like a tie.
If I had to do a tie, you know what my runner-up would be? And I'm almost... You ever do this? You ever say a favorite, and then after you're like, but I really like that one too.
Yeah.
My other one would be Home Alone. I love that film. Christopher Columbus classic. Made a lot of people very wealthy, that movie.
Indeed.
That is just... that movie's a license to print money every holiday season. But yeah, guys, we had a lot of fun with this episode. Fun time getting in the holiday spirit with you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the new year.
Peace.